Mocap, come on. Come on, mocap. 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 That conversation must be really good. No problem. All right, we're gonna start off with resolution number 958-2024 by Councilmember Starr, Bishop, and Harrison. By departmental request, an emergency ordinance declaring the intent to vacate the remaining portion of Sherman Court. This has been heard and passed by Municipal Services and Properties. Commissioner, Assistant Director.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
This is a vacation for Sherman Court is for the gentleman wants to develop property for a trucking and warehouse business. He currently, if you look at your schematic map, he currently owns all the properties but once, and it's in the process, that real small one that he doesn't own. He's currently in the process of consolidating all that.
Yes, sir.
As his building is being put in the southwest corner, and he needs those parcels put together. So with this vacation, he'll be better able to develop the property. He's chasing that one last parcel also.
All right. We do these all the time. And this is in Councilman Starr Ward, correct?
Correct, we have consent.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the committee? Seeing no questions from the committee, resolution 958-2024 stands approved. Ordinance number 1010, 2024 by Councilmembers Hairston, Bishop, and Griffin by departmental request, emergency ordinance approving the report of the Assessment Equalization Board on objections concerning estimated assessments to design, inspect, reconstruct, repair, and/or install roadways, sidewalks, driveway aprons, curbs, including adjustments of casting and landscaping if necessary, encroaching upon the public right-of-way on Euclid Beach Boulevard, Entry Street, East 159th Street from Euclid Beach Boulevard to Lakeshore Boulevard, determine to proceed with the improvements and adopting the equalized assessments. Director, Commissioner.
Thank you. Yes, this, as we mentioned, it's Euclid Beach Boulevard, East 159th Street in Ward 8. This is through the assessment process that we're going to reconstruct the road. The road was originally put in probably in the early 80s and then was not accepted by the city as it was not built to standards, so maintenance has been done by the developer, by the folks that live there currently.
Yeah.
So in order to replace the road, an assessment was introduced. This is like the third or fourth piece of legislation. We had the resolution of necessity. The resolution established the Board of Equalization, and now we have the resolution accepting their findings. This board has met in August, and their charge is to look at, make sure all the prices were fairly distributed. They're not to be questioned as to the purpose of the project or the cost itself. So their results are in. They found everything was acceptable, and this resolution is to accept their findings. Once that is complete, we can go to construction, which we're anticipating in the spring.
Awesome, thank you. Again, this has been heard by Municipal Services and Properties as well. Yes, this is like our third, fourth piece. I know Councilman Polenzek is, which his name should be on here as well. Please add Councilman Polenzek. I know this is something that he really wants to get done as well. And this is our third, fourth piece of hearing this. I hope that now we can go ahead and get this road repaired. It is in bad, bad shape. That leads you back to the apartments. Was it Manicare? Mm-hmm. You have the dollar store. You get a lot of places back there,
yes.
Right? And it's
many people.
It's been bad since I was a kid back up in there. Any questions from the committee? Seeing no questions, ordinance number 1010-2024 stands approved.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all. What else you got? That's it?
Yes, we have one for real estate.
Okay. Mrs. O'Leary? Ordinance number 639-2024 by Councilmember Mara, an emergency ordinance to amend the title of Chapter 352 and Section 352.01 of Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, as amended by Ordinance number 30778-89. Oof, 89. Passed June 17, 1991. All right. Into supplement the Codified Ordinance by enacted new Section 352.13 relating to the lighting requirements for outdoor parking lots. Oh, all right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Through the chair, you have a legislative summary on your tablets.
Yes, we do.
And this ordinance enacts a new section, 352.13, to require lighting standards in all outdoor parking lots with 10 or more spaces. During non-daylight hours, outdoor parking lots must be illuminated with 1 to 2.5 foot candles, as recommended by the Illuminating Engineering Society. The purpose of this ordinance is to provide adequate lighting for the safety of residents and pedestrians and to prevent crime and accidents. It'll be enforced upon plan review for new permits by the Department of Building and Housing and by City Planning Commission. The Building and Housing Department can inspect complaints of noncompliance and issue a violation notice to bring outdoor parking lots into compliance. And the penalty for a violation that's not fixed is a first-degree misdemeanor. The tool that will be used for enforcement is an illuminance meter that measures light illumination levels, and you can buy for $25 on Amazon. And Councilwoman Moore
Yes, I
can
have an
can
example. I
talk
shared
more
in my
about that.
comments.
And something also to note about this ordinance is that it's not retroactive, so it only applies to lighting requirements in lots installed after the effective date of the ordinance. Existing lots with lighting that are already approved are not subject to the new lighting requirements. However, if an existing light plan existed that was previously approved, and, for example, an existing parking lot doesn't have any light bulbs, then they could also be cited for that. An owner that's replacing existing light bulbs, lighting in their parking lot, and installing new lighting also needs to comply with the new standards.
That's all?
That's all. And it's also been done in Columbus, Toledo, Dayton, and Dublin.
All
And
right.
this is also consistent with our form-based code. I made sure with Shannon that that was the case.
Dublin?
Dublin, Ohio.
Dublin.
Ohio cities of, yeah. I
All
don't know
right.
about Dublin, maybe. I mean,
Maybe.
yeah.
Thank you, Mrs. O'Leary. Anything, Mrs. Leonard?
Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Administrator. So we're just here in support of this ordinance. It passed City Planning Commission, it passed City Planning Commission earlier this year, and I had worked with Mr. O'Leary for the placement of this and which section in the code it would be best fit, which is under the landscaping and screening. And then the form-based code that we passed earlier this year is consistent with these lighting requirements.
All right, sounds good. We got the expert here. All right, always a pleasure. All right, just before I turn it over to the committee and Councilwoman Mara, my only issue that I see, question, not an issue, but question. So if existing lighting plans were previously approved, that's fine, and it's not retro. But then you go on to say an owner that is replacing existing lighting. If you're replacing what's already there, why should they have to go and comply with this new requirement if you're already replacing what's already in place? It's like you take down a fence. If you're putting back the fence that you took down exactly how it was, then you're okay. If approved previously.
Through the chair, this is really to get at, so you have an old parking lot and it hasn't been brought up to standards for years, and then they decide to do a renovation and replace. I don't think it's just replacing
Madam
light
Chairwoman,
bulbs.
I can't hear the distinguished
Oh.
attorney.
Sorry, through the chair. This is, upon a new plan review to replace lighting and upgrade lighting.
Okay, so this was it. If you have to go through plan review and you are making significant changes to your parking lot, then you will be required to enhance your lighting based on the new ordinance change.
And this language was taken from the form-based code. So it's consistent with that, and Shannon can speak to that more.
Gotcha. Mrs. Leonard?
Yeah, to the chair. So we have the non-conforming clause in our code that would generally allows if you have a non-conforming use or structure, if you will, if you're not redoing more than 50%, right, or taking down or replacing more than 50% of the value, then you can maintain your property as is. What this will do is any type of, in terms of, obviously, if you have an existing parking lot that already has lights, they're not going to say you have to meet the 1 to 2.5 foot candles, correct? And so therefore, so the city cannot enforce what's already out there, right? What's already lighting. But if you have, if you're going to be replacing your lights or doing new construction development or total rehabilitation, this code section would apply. And we would be looking for that on the building permits that are coming in through the Department of Building and Housing.
So if I have, if I change the fixtures that I currently have in my lot, and I'm just changing my fixture to be a LED versus a old time, like our old CPP lights, right? That old
Yep.
that old orange illumination. And I want to make it a LED. So if I want to change just the fixtures, I have 4 fixtures in my lot. I want to change the fixtures and the light bulbs to be LEDs. I'm required now to make the complete change to what we are considering today.
Yes, but this is consistent with industry standard.
Okay, but if my plans were previously approved and I just want to change my fixture and I have to add more, do more, what if I don't have the dollars to do it?
I don't believe you would have to add more, do more. Are you talking about replacing if you're replacing the total fixture, you're lightly replacing the illumination that goes with it.
Right. If I'm going from a orange, old, like a CPP type light to now a LED fixture,
Yes.
I will now have to abide by the new rule here.
If you're putting in a permit application, yes.
Okay. I don't know if I like that, but okay. I turn over to the committee. Committee, you have questions? Councilwoman Santana, then Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you.
And then Councilwoman House.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Okay.
And then
Through the
Spencer.
chair to our attorneys, or if you want to answer, this is only for apartment buildings, correct?
No, through the chair, this is for all outdoor parking lots.
So this also includes the Family Dollars or
Yes.
Dollar General?
Yes,
okay,
it's
so
just
the
across the board.
legislation changed. Okay, good. That's it. Thank you.
I mean,
That's-
and Councilwoman Moore will talk more about that. It got started because of concerns that were expressed to her in residential, multifamily, senior living apartments. But when we looked at the zoning code, it just made more sense to apply to all outdoor parking lots.
Good, because,
Yes.
that was something that I was interested in. So now, but then Family Dollars and all that are just already set in place, so it would be if a new Family Dollar, Dollar General, or any other stores open after this legislation has been approved, right?
Or if they're installing new lighting.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Joe Jones?
Mr. Chairman, it sounds like this was born from Rebecca Mauer's experience in her neighborhood. So I would like to hear, if that's possible, her explanation before I have any questions to them. I want to hear what she has to say about this, if that's okay with the chair.
No, that's fine. Yeah, she has to be last, so we can
That's
put her
fine.
on last and then we'll come back.
I can go. I just didn't want to overstep the committee since I'm here as a guest.
I
But
got you.
I'm happy.
Councilman House?
I guess this will be through the chair to the council member. If you can share why we are not, no, you know what, X that. Through the chair to the team that's here, can you explain, are all buildings required to have lighting thus far when they are, when it's designed?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, yes. So the current code requires lighting for all buildings and parking lots across the board. There's just no set standard of the illumination in Title 7A. The form-based code does set this same standard with new construction and additions and renovations at the same lighting as that is being presented here today.
Through the chair to the team that's here. So if you have a current building that doesn't have any lighting, what is the penalty?
I would have to defer to speaking with Chief Vanover regarding penalties of not meeting code enforcement.
I think so. Through the chair to the team here, like this is the I would say the problem, the challenge that we have. We are already a pretty built out community. And so if we are coming up with a new standard, I really, because lighting is a big issue, specifically now with all of the car break-ins and all of these things, that's part of the problem. There is not a lot of lighting in many of our parking spaces. So if there is a way or opportunity to understand what the current penalties are, I think that would be helpful. While they may not have this standard, maybe we need to couple currently the current lighting to also include a penalty, even if it isn't up to whatever this current illumination is.
Through the chair to the councilwoman, it's a good question, and actually, so The penalty, the first-degree misdemeanor that applies to not complying with this outdoor parking lot is actually just from the general penalties that's in the building and housing zoning code. So I believe the penalty would probably be the same. I'd have to go back and confirm, but, I mean, it's really a penalty for not complying with the requirements of the chapter, of the zoning chapter. So in this case, I can definitely say it's a first-degree misdemeanor to not comply. But it wasn't a new penalty that we set. It's just elsewhere in the codified ordinance.
And I guess that's through the chair to the team here. Has anybody actually been fined because of lighting?
Through the chair to the councilman. So I can get that information from you through our Department of Building and Housing. I think this kind of goes to an enforcement issue across the board. But there is legislation. The zoning code already requires lighting. The reason why that there's not a defined illumination, if you will, it's based on industry standard, is because as the world evolves, as technology evolves, the zoning code has always just operated in some ways to be vague so as to allow for development through technologies and things like that. And so that's why there currently isn't a foot candle or luminance standard in the zoning code under the original Euclidean zoning code prior to the form-based code. But with the advent with the form-based code, they've added the standards. And so I think I can talk to the Department of Building and Housing with the director, as well as the chief building official, to discuss, as well as Mr. David Roberts in code enforcement, to see what they can do about the enforcing the existing, which is making sure that you have substantial lighting to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of residents and businesses in our community.
Okay.
Also, I would say through the chair to the councilwoman that the existing, the enforcement of this and any lighting requirement would be similar. It would be complaint-driven, and Building and Housing would issue a violation to come in compliance with the code, and then there would be a penalty that could be, it's whether or not they're actually enforcing it is another question.
All right. Councilwoman? I know the road you're going down. I'm with you. I think we share the sentiments up here. Okay. Councilwoman Spencer, would you like Councilwoman Mara to go, or you want to go?
Oh. Actually, I'll just say real briefly, and then maybe Councilwoman can respond. Thanks,
Okay.
Mr. Chair. I just have one question for now, and I'd welcome the Councilwoman to respond, or our legal counsel to respond, which has to do with the not retroactive clause and a legal opinion about that. I think we've been other members have been also inquiring along the same line, which is why not have it be retroactive and require existing owners to adapt to the new reality, right? The new reality that this is what we need in our neighborhoods to keep our residents safe, to keep personal property secure. Is there a legal reason why we are not able to make it retroactive? Through the chair, and I'll defer to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Through
All
the
right.
chair to the councilwoman, it's not legal. We also have a clause in the zoning code that Shannon referred to. The nonconformities may continue. A use lawfully existing before this amendment that does not conform may continue. There is an except as provided, so that's kind of where I took a little bit of liberty and put in and it was in the form-based zoning code about, new lighting. If you're installing a new, it's not necessarily replacing a light bulb, but, installing a new lighting system would definitely trigger these new requirements. But it is unfortunately not legally permitted. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate the chance to be here. This has been a long road, and it's taught me a lot about how we handle zoning and some of these kind of bread and butter daily life questions. But I just want to share the story because I love these residents so dearly of how we got here, and also give you all a little tutorial on this very nice illuminance meter, which I'm more than happy to loan out to any members of council that want to test their own parking lots at night. So I have an incredible set of residents who live at 7050 Broadway Avenue. It's a senior building. It's honestly a relatively nice building, but it's come under new management in recent years, and the management has let a lot of aspects of the building fall into disrepair. I first got to know these residents when their elevator was out for their only elevator was out for 31 days, meaning that a bunch of these seniors were trapped on the second and third floors of their apartment complex. And after we got the elevator fixed, I talked to these residents about what they wanted to do next and what were their big concerns in the building. And the number one thing they said over and over again was that the parking lot was really dark at night. They'd had dozens of car break-ins, multiple catalytic converters stolen, and frankly, the residents were just scared to come home at night, even on paratransit. And I went out there at night myself, and it was dark to my eyes. But when I talked to the landlord said, look, we have lighting, these are just seniors, they just don't see as well, and I don't want to, I don't have to do this. And so I, with Jen O'Leary's help, went looking for a standard. What are the rules around how brightly we need to illuminate a parking lot to make it safe and secure for our residents at night? And what I learned is that plenty of other cities put in this minimum illuminance standard, and I learned what a foot candle is. I think it's something about the idea of how brightly one candle can illuminate a foot of space around it, but basically it's one of those units of measurement like in science class. And so I went looking and I very easily found this is one of dozens of illuminance meters that you can purchase online for $30, $40, $50. You turn it on and it has this bright, if you cover it, that's taking away all the light, but this is what's measuring the light. And here we have our brightest source of light in the entire world, which is the sun reflecting off the lake. And so it is showing a really, really high level of illuminance in this room right now, like 500, 600. That is a high level. And what I'm going to pass it down so everyone can do it, but you can cover the sensor with your hand and kind of get a sense of this measuring the light in the room. What I'd say is that until you really take this out at night, it's hard to kind of get a sense of what 1 to 2.5 foot candles looks like, because that's going to feel very, very dark in this room because it's so brightly lit in here. But I took this out to my parking lot at night. I actually had a Channel 5 news crew out with me, and there's a really great story of them showing me walking around with this. And most of that parking lot was at 0.03 foot candles. It just was not illuminated. And so I was so proud to work with Jen to get this, and city planning, to formalize this standard. And we went back and forth a lot on the retroactivity, on the standardization, because certainly my preference would be POW overnight. We have to get all these parking lots up to this level of illuminance. But I think after a lot of back and forth discussion, it's clear that that's not the path we're necessarily going to take. But what I am really excited about with this is setting a standard in our code so that going forward, we both have new projects and new parking lots and new light fixture installations meet a minimum code. But also if you have one of those old buildings, the Family Dollar that, the parking lot is dark, borrow this from me. I will have it in my office. I am the illuminance meter loan library, and come take this. And that will be a way, just like we did with this landlord, and say, you aren't meeting, we have a standard in this city, you're not meeting it. And maybe we don't have the formal penalty for that retroactivity, but it is a formalization of our expectations to keep residents safe in these parking lots at night. So I'm very excited to be moving this forward, and I'm really proud to hopefully get to the point that I can take this back to my residents at 7050 Broadway and tell them that they help make a difference for other seniors. So I really thank you for the chance to both hear the legislation and ask questions about it today.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman House Jones, and then we're going back to Councilman Joe Jones.
Okay, through the chair, to the council member, so how is this going to impact the residents currently, where you had the property owner who indicated, I don't have to do anything about it?
I'm so sorry. Councilwoman Spencer was asking about the meter. Can you ask that one more time?
I said, through the chair to the council member, how is this going to impact the residents at 70, on Broadway?
I'm really proud to say that once we shared that the parking lot was at such a low standard, the landlord got out there within a week and improved the lighting, and now the entire parking lot meets the 1 foot candle standard. So they have already fixed it at that particular apartment building.
And again, through the chair too, what about all of the other parking lots when you cannot find the property owner, they are not responsive? I'm really just trying to get to what is our definition, I guess, through the chair to the team, what is substantial lighting and how we defined it?
Okay, through the chair, the councilwoman, I mean, as to new plans and as to if you're replacing lighting?
No, currently. What's the current
currently,
standard? Because
Well, currently, I could say for parking lots, there is no standard whatsoever. Shannon can speak to other lighting requirements.
Yeah, as it relates to illumination generally, there is not, like I had already previously mentioned through the chair to the councilwoman, but it is vague enough that enforcement, that you have to have suitable lighting to enlighten an area for the health, safety, and welfare. So I do think that there's an option here for building and housing. I'm not building and housing, but definitely working with building and housing collectively, that they could enforce some of these low light parking lots today.
Yeah. And Councilwoman, if I could add into that, you are asking the exact same questions we were asking throughout the drafting process, because again, I would certainly love to pass a law that could get us to the point of nighttime enforcement on every parking lot in the city. But we can't pass a law to make something retroactively a crime, right? Like that violates the Constitution. So we are a little bit limited and have to move this forward. This is not a perfect bill. It doesn't fix everything right now, but it does kind of put a watermark down and say, this is what we expect as the city. And then over time, I certainly hope that more and more parking lots in the city go on to meet these standards.
Also, through the chair to the councilwoman, I was speaking more about measurable illumination, foot candle requirements, but as Shannon said, there's still some standard, and when I was reading this legislative summary before, pointed out that in talking with Commissioner Vanover when we worked on this, even with an existing lot, if they had plans that were approved, 10 years ago, with a certain lighting standard, because they do usually have to present some lighting with any plan, even though there wasn't an illumination requirement by foot candles, if they're not keeping up with that lighting standard, they could also be issued a violation notice and have to come into compliance. So it's not that there's nothing for existing parking lots, it's just that it's not held specifically to this illumination meter foot candle standard.
Right,
Yeah,
through the
okay.
chair to the team, I understand that. I was just trying to get an understanding what is suitable lighting, right? If this was a vagueness that we have originally created, like what is the policy and practice on, and how is suitable defined? And how do you hold people to the standard of suitable? Because again, now that we have this new for ongoing, it would be an opportunity to engage with our current building owners to say, hey, you have this current suitable standard, this is not suitable. So how do we define suitable?
So I think that's the point of the bill, is getting to this definition of what's suitable or acceptable. If I'm understanding the question, it's sort of saying, what do we want these parking lots to look like? How well illuminated do they need to be? And that's exactly what we're trying to pass here, is this 1 to 2.5 foot candle standard. If I'm understanding the question,
No,
Councilwoman.
it's we know we can't, current people will not have to use this current standard. So I'm trying to figure out how do we define suitable so that we can also hold the current standards to some level of suitable standard, and then the new people to this new standard. But it's hard to know because of the vagueness, because of the industry. How have we as a city defined suitable so that we can begin to enforce? Because again, this correlates to the public safety issues that are going on specifically around property crime, right? And if we could get a little bit more assertive to our current policies based on this suitable standard, then at least we can have a pathway forward. We can educate residents about it, right? So then that they can start putting pressure on building owners and the city to enforce the current law. Because again, this new law will not we already know what's going to happen. So I'm just trying to get to the suitable. So maybe this is a conversation for building and housing and really focus as our inspectors will be inspecting all things, because I think it's important. I think it's a helpful measure to have. I think it'll also be helpful to equip us with what's the definition of suitable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hear you loud and clear, Councilwoman, and I agree with you. You know, how do we have current issues as well, and hearing from Mrs. O'Leary and Mrs. Leonard that the current code is kind of vague, is you know, suitable, but there's no real definition of what suitable is, because what I think is suitable may not be with the property owner, may not be with Commissioner Vandover, may not be with inspector, may not be with the director. So we all can have different variations of what suitable means, and how do you enforce that with the current? I'm assuming you just, whatever was approved when they developed their property or put in their parking lot, if they went through the correct process, you can enforce what they were approved, what plans that were approved based on that development.
The health, safety, and welfare.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, so the standard is what's reasonable, right? And so that's probably a really like code way to explain it. What is reasonable? Obviously, if you have like dark patches and things, the purpose is really for the, you know, protecting the health, safety, and welfare. That's the whole premise of various code sections in the zoning code as is. That's what's been upheld, you know, in the courts and things of that nature. Yeah. So, but I do think that you bring up some viable points from you as well as the councilwoman in terms of what exactly does suitable mean, and obviously can change based on who you are, where you are, you know, somebody. I can say that if a applicant comes in to, you know, restore, repair, or expand their parking lot, they would have to qualify under this new regulation in terms of this actual standard. The other thing is that working with building and housing and the law department to figure out if there is anything else that we can do in this regard as it relates to these existing. The other thing is if there is a parking lot that is not established, right? It's not legally established, and it hasn't, it was like a gravel lot that changed and they didn't put in the proper permits. The city would be able to enforce the lighting standard for those and write out violations for those parking lots that are not to code. Because if they're not to code in terms of lighting, they're more than likely not to code in terms of drainage, maintenance, and things of that nature.
Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was listening intently because you know, the code and how the code is written, and new base code, all of this, that, you know, I think came down quite some time before this council got seated the majority, with the exception of maybe one who's here. And I guess my question is, and just looking at what we have right here, is how do we err on the side of being cautious in one respect for the person who actually owns the property? Because, you know, one cookie cutter don't fits it all. Every neighborhood is different. And for an example, where lighting may be an issue in one neighborhood, lighting is a pollution in another community. And so what we're dealing with in our communities in some areas are a little bit slightly different, where we have too much lighting. So then residents in the residential neighborhoods can't get sleep at night, you know, because they have those lights all off into their faces. So that's a concern, Mr. Chairman, for me, when we start talking about setting standards, and then you must and you shall, and it should be, you know. So when we get into that, and then just put a bookmark there. The second issue I have too is adding this new law, how will it encumber and slow down business from being able to process, come in, build, and develop? Because one of the things, Mr. Chairman, that I'm seeing a problem with is with new business owners coming into the city of Cleveland on existing properties that they may purchase. And because this new base zoning piece is in place, it's caused them a number of delays. For an example, we have 2 gas stations that are now turned into Shell gas stations. We're excited and happy as a neighborhood. The one marquee was changed out at the Lee and Harvard because all they needed to do, Mr. Chairman, was just to place the plastic and the bulbs and light bulbs and stuff like that into the fixture. The company came down here because they have to pull a permit because it's a part of the company policy to pull permits, and they had no problems with changing out their marquee, the plastic and the bulbing and all of that. Then when it came to them shifting down to less than, I would say, half a mile down the road to their second gas station they just purchased, they have a marquee, same marquee, whole 9 yards. They pull the permit, and then they're flagged and told that, you know, according to our requirements, our base code requirements, you're going to have to demolish your existing sign, and you're going to have to build a sign that is so many feet off the ground. You're going to have a brick structure. All of these rules and regulations are now popped in, and the owner was like, I can't afford that. I just spent $127,000 to get all my windows shot out and had to go right back and get it replaced. And so I cannot afford what the city's asking me to do here at this particular site location. And can you please look into it? And so it's things like that, Mr. Chairman, that when we put this here together, is not only encumbering certain areas that may want it, but it's encumbering the entire city. So we have to have some level of flexibility in this, Mr. Chairman. So I would say that, you know, upon council's approval in their respective territory, and I would be in agreement with an amendment like that, so that this won't become, as so many other codes, a onerous situation, because when we ask the question here at this table, how will it be enforced, no one knows. So if we're talking about this, that part of the enforcement should be discussed. What does that mean? What are the penalties? We know that what we see in the executive summary as at least $1,000 fine and 180 days in jail. Well, you know, I just think that we really need to fundamentally understand the enforcement side. What does this truly mean? Because if you're saying partial, what does partial mean? It's not really broken out here. So when we start talking about doing some of the lights versus others, what really triggers it? Because we got two same gas stations, less than 800 feet, but now I can change this one over here, but on the other side, I can't do the same over here. So for me, Mr. Chairman, I understand the wanting to get the safety and everything else in play, but how would this encumber our businesses? And this is the biggest issue in the growth of the city of Cleveland. Business owners who have to come through building and housing are very extremely upset. They've always been extremely upset. They're always lard at the fact that it's very difficult to do business in the city of Cleveland. And then on the east side, Mr. Chairman, as you are aware, all of these rules and regulations and all the things are in play. Even when we try to use block grant money to do storefront renovation, we have not been able to get that off. And so at the end of the day, I just say let's err on the side of caution. I'm for it, but let's have something where it goes to the council.
Thank you, Councilman.
For approval.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I just want to respond. So first and foremost, the projects that you're talking about are not in the new form-based code zoning districts. They actually had to go through design review, which is one of the reasons why form-based code that was adopted by this council and city planning commission, the idea was hopefully to move the permitting process faster in conjunction with the overhaul of the permitting process that building and housing, city planning, and all of the development departments that touch a permit are working on. So the form-based code did not touch those permits at all. The second thing is those were signed permits, and those do, if they're in a design review district, they do have to go through design review, and unfortunately, it can be a lengthy process. As it relates to the monument, changing a pole sign to a monument, those are based on design guidelines that have been adopted by the Design Review and City Planning Commission for many, many years. And so whenever there's an opportunity to see if a business owner that is redoing their sign and putting significant reinvestment into their gas station or their shopping center or their restaurants or things of that nature, if there's an opportunity to get a more aesthetically pleasing signage than a pole sign that runs the risk of falling over or is unsightly or causes any type of clutter to the streetway, The City Planning Commission is always going to go with the adopted guidelines and try to work with the business owner to get to some kind of compromise. It's never intended to just stop, delay, and force them to do something they don't want to, because there's always the due process to go through the proper commissions and then go on to the Board of Zoning Appeals.
And see, Mr. Chairman, that just proved my point. So we have another layer here. So the issue is all of these processes, all of these layers, all of these delays, and in this particular instance, to the distinguished lady, both signs are in beautiful condition. They're not tore down, they're not dilapidated, they're not falling over the place. It's just now when we have business that has the resources to invest a lot of money already in play, now you're encumbering them with an entire different process. Two gas stations, two different locations, same signage, and then you have an issue. So then you have to go, as you heard the distinguished lady, this is all these steps. And yes, she deferred that it's a lengthy process. It shouldn't be that difficult to change out a sign, to put lighting in, to put plastic in. But if it's going to take this man 6 to 7, 8 months to do that, and at the same time we're looking at an eyesore in our neighborhood, it's unacceptable, Mr. Chairman. And so, you know, if other cities can move like this, Cleveland needs to get on the ball, start moving like this. That's the reason why Columbus is by leaps and bounds growing. Cincinnati, if you go down to Cincinnati's downtown, none of these cities should have, Mr. Chairman, with this beautiful lake that we have here that the distinguished lady talking about, how the sun is bouncing off of it and giving us sunshine in here. None of us with this city right here the way it is, we should be looking at any other city in the state of Ohio. This Cleveland area should be shining bright, just like that councilwoman saying that sun is shining off with all these new buildings being stripped down and built all the way down across our strips in this area. We're the rock and roll capital of the world, but yet we can't seem to get any kind of leverage like Nashville. And so at the end of the day, when I sit here at this table as a father, as a husband, as a business owner, I'm frustrated at the economic development and growth in our city and in our communities. And so I'm suggesting that if you want to do any changes, it's by the council person or there's a sign-off in place, as there are with so many other kind of sign-offs. And so for me, I get what the distinguished lady is saying. Now, when it comes to the 2.5, whatever they call, what does that mean? How bright is that? Because a meter ain't gonna tell me anything. So what I wanna know, is it 75 or 80 or 100 illuminations? What is it? What are we talking about here?
Through the chair, the councilman, we really did a lot of research on, like you talked about, light pollution. This is not at all going to create light pollution. This is according to the standards set by the Illuminating Engineering Society, and they're carefully set out according to the different even types of parking lots. So this is in keeping with outdoor parking lots. And as Councilwoman Mauer
Madam
explained, the
Chairwoman,
foot
Mr.
candles is a
Chairman,
way to
how
measure.
bright is it, please? Do you know how bright it's going to
Yeah,
be?
could I interject? Would you mind,
Yes.
Jen and Councilman?
Yes, if she's going to tell me how bright it is
Yes,
without
I
taking me
am.
25
Well, I think you
minutes
should
down the
take that
road.
meter, and, you know, you aren't going to be able to get to 2.5 in this room because this room is way too bright. So you're going to have to take it like into a closet almost, or actually take it to the parking garage downstairs.
Well, what is the illuminations is the question.
So it's measured.
This ain't going to tell me nothing. I don't
Well,
even
no,
know
it
how to
is.
use
Oh,
it.
Councilman.
Mr. Chairman, just if we know what the illumination is, that's all I'd like to know.
Yeah, so Councilman, you have to measure illumination some way, right? Because I might say this is bright and that's dark, but how do you measure it? And you measure it with something called foot candles, and that's what that meter measures. So that's the tool you use to determine how bright something is. And I just wanted to add a couple points to what you're saying. So the city has rules against light pollution. You can't illuminate a parking lot by, for instance, by...
Mr. Chairman, I'm only asking a simple question. When I go out in my neighborhood and I deal with Mr. Ferguson at Cleveland Public Power, I tell him how much I want them lights to be lit up in certain areas and how I want some to be dimmed. So all I'm asking you is it 75? Like light bulbs in your house, you buy them, there's 60 watts, 75 watts. How many wattages are we talking about?
So that's why we're not Oh, Chairman, I apologize. Thank you, Chairman. You can't measure a parking lot light by the wattage. That's not the right way to do it because there's so much space that wattage has to illuminate that the wattage doesn't tell you if it's working or not. What you need is a measurement of how bright it is for a human on the pavement, and that's what that meter measures.
So 2.5 is how bright is 2.5?
That's what that meter will tell you, but
So I have to look at the meter in order to tell?
yes, you do.
I see.
You can't
All right.
measure it based on the light
So
bulbs.
because we have a meter system, and I don't know what that really means, sitting technically at the table, what that wattage would look like, how bright it is, can't measure it. You know, I tell my guy, you know, I wanted half the wattage of lights, and he dims it. And then we come back and we take a look at it. But what we're talking about is safety. And so we want to do everything we can to keep our community safe. But the big issue here in terms of safety is that we have to get more police down on the ground. Now, I've been sitting here talking about more police. Whether you have lights or not, people are robbing people in broad daylight. They're cutting their catalytic converters off in the daytimes at some of these businesses. So we're getting impact all over the place. So if our city is going to be serious about safety, let us hire some more police. Let this be a priority for all the elected officials who's sitting here at this table and across the hall. And that means that we have to put money into it. Now, we sat here and had all those ARPA funds, and we're unsafe right now, still in our city. So I don't have a problem, Mr. Chairman, with the distinguished lady's piece in terms of illumination, but I'd like to have choice and options in my neighborhood because we're over encumbered. And all of the businesses, Mr. Chairman, that I've had in my neighborhood that had lighting problems, I went to them. I told Burger King, you're gonna have to light this up. I told Walgreens, you're gonna have to light it up. I told BP gas station, and I went all the way over there to the old Shell gas station, which was now the new Shell gas station, and told them to light it up. And they've all have responded. And Mr. Chairman, I haven't had any problems with it. So when we come back to the city and we go through this code-based form now, how much would lighting cost if you had to replace the lighting? Do we know? Did we do the research on how much would that encumber a business owner who's now facing 180 days in jail for $1,000 fine?
Through the chair to the councilman, this doesn't really add any cost. It's just the, I mean, anyone that goes before the planning commission with their
The
plans
business
for
owner has to
building.
change his layout for permits, right? So you're saying that he wouldn't have to pay for changing out his lights and fixtures based on this law?
They already have to present parking lot lighting. This just requires a certain level, which is actually a very low level compared to a lot of other lighting, because it takes into consideration that it's an open parking lot, which unless you see the level lighting, you can't really know, but I could tell you that, according to this Illuminating Society, like just to give you a reference, in a uncovered parking lot, they're recommending this. It's a range from 1 to 2.5. In a covered parking lot, they increase it to 5, for example, than going on. In a retail store, it's 50. So just to give you a little bit of a range, but I don't see this adding cost. They already have to provide lighting. It's just saying they want to make sure it's at a level where people can see when they're in a parking lot and they get out of their car and they're walking to their building.
So no, I was just only concerned with the
Yeah.
portion, Mr. Chairman, that said that if you do partial changes, then you have to go back, now have to go through this process. So if, say, for an example, my gas station owner wants to change half his lighting, then if he wants to change out half of his lighting, you're saying to me he's okay, he wouldn't have to pull a permit, he wouldn't have to go, this wouldn't relate to him, or would it relate to him?
Through the chair to the councilman. So what I was referring to is if you're going to pull you're redoing your lighting, and you pull a permit for, first of all, the gas station has to have at least 10 parking spaces. So this doesn't apply to something with less than 10 parking spaces. Lighting for parking spaces for 10 or more already exists. This is really just giving that standard that you were asking for a number that can be measured, that can be enforced upon, getting rid of that vagueness that, what's reasonable, what is, what is that? That's all that this piece is doing. The lighting is already required, putting lighting on your site plan, pulling an electrical permit to do the lighting, providing how many foot candles or the illumination is already required on site plans and construction drawings when you come into the city of Cleveland. So I don't believe that there's an added expense to just putting a standard on it. And this is the industry standard for safe parking lots across the country. So for that purpose. So in terms of the permitting process, in terms of a gas station, if it has more than 10 parking spaces and they're coming through and they're redoing their canopy and they're redoing their lighting, yes, they're going to need to meet the standard. Now, if they can't meet the standard or they have some hardship and can't meet the standard, they can get the variance from the Board of Zoning Appeals. And yes, that is a process, but that goes with setting standards as time evolves with the city. Thank you.
Well, Mr. Chairman, so you're talking about 10 parking spaces. So if it's over 10 parking spaces, then this would kick in, is what you're saying. So if it's less than 10 parking or 10 parking spaces or less, old construction. Like, because right now we don't have a lot of spaces, Mr. Chairman, in our neighborhood where we have a lot of new construction going on.
Well, when I say new, Councilman, I don't mean like out of the ground, I mean like new construction, like you're redoing existing
Right.
or substantial
Correct.
rehab, basically.
Correct.
10 or more for substantial rehab or new construction. So, and I'm on the same page with you in terms of, that's why I asked the question, if I have a business that wants to change their old time, I just use an example, CPP look type lights, but want to add in the
Right.
new type CPP lights, LEDs, will they have to go and update their entire lighting system to this standard? And the response is no, they would not, because they are just replacing the
Existing.
fixture and bulbs that was there,
Right.
and they're not doing a substantial over 50% rehab or change to the property.
Well, I'm okay with it, Mr. Chairman. I'm not against the actual ordinance.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to understand what
Yeah.
it really, how will it encumber the already encumbered processes that we have to go through, and then also making sure that we err on the side of managing light and pollution, and though it's 2.5 foot candles, I might have to ask Rebecca Maurer, let me go in and use her thing into my parking lots just to make sure and figure out what is and what do they have in place.
Please do. I think it really helps to play around with it.
All right, Councilman McCormack. He has a lot of parking lots.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Councilmember Moore and our legal and zoning team. Let me start by saying nobody deserves to be the victim of crime, but I had a parking lot in my ward a couple years ago where cars were broken into. Again, no one deserves that, be it the parking lot owner or the car owners. But I got this horrible, nasty email from the parking lot owner, and I felt terrible, and I came to I said, the next night I went out there to see if there were still cars there. Not one light. Pitch black. There were lights all around the parking lot. They were all out. Bushes overgrown. Looked like hell. And so again, no one deserves that. But my response to him was photos of his parking lot and how if you are looking to do something bad, you're going to find the easiest opportunity that you can. And that parking lot was for sure the easiest opportunity on the block for someone to do something bad in, because you couldn't see a thing. So I use that example as a way of how important I think lighting is, especially in parking lots, to ensure that, will it prevent everything? No, but can it make it a more unfriendly target for people that want to do bad things? Yes. I almost wish, I know that's too big of a jump, I almost wish cameras were in this ordinance, because that's another thing that every parking lot owner should be putting up in their parking lots. But Chair, I appreciate the good conversation and questions today, and I think as a matter of public safety in the community, and I'll speak at least from my experience in Ward 3, our well-lit lots that are taken care of, that have cameras in them, as well seem to have a whole lot less problems than lots that are overgrown and not taken care of. So just wanted to share that experience, Mr. Chairman. I support this ordinance.
Thank you, Councilman McCormack. All right, well, listen, thank you for the discussion. I think everyone has made some valid points. Councilman Joe Jones, you want to?
Mr. Chairman, you know, Carrie McCormick brings up a great idea about cameras and parking lots, and then just how bad of a situation he was dealing with. And so, you know, I know we got cameras all over the place on the east side, and certainly cameras all in every space you can crack a camera. And if I can go buy me some more cameras and put them out there, I would. Here's the issue that I have for enforcement. Who enforces these properties like Carrie McCormick talked about, which is totally no light at all? And then why haven't they done their job?
I mean, yeah, this is O'Leary.
Through the chair to the councilman, I mean, it's a complaint-driven process, so if anybody wants to complain about a parking lot with no lighting that is a crime haven, call 311. Building and housing can get out
So building
there
and housing
and
is supposed
issue
to
a
enforce it,
violation notice
Mr.
for it
Chairman.
not being safe and habitable.
So building and housing is supposed to do the enforcement. And so...
And zoning when there's plans involved. Yeah.
Right. So we have a lot of places, Mr. Chairman, that, you know, there's been complaints that have been called in, and we still don't have any issues. In fact, Mr. Chairman, I have issues in my neighborhood that are just dilapidated, falling down houses, and we can call them in. We still ain't got no issues on it. And I've had to call, Mr. Chairman, other departments because of the lack of enforcement.
Gotcha.
And so I don't know if there's special or differential treatment or whatever the scenario is, but I can look over my neighborhood. I can't understand why some of these areas just have been ongoing eyesores, and it's right in the heart of our neighborhoods.
Yeah.
It's right in our faces. And then when the citizens call me up and complain, they say, I'm depressed. I'm depressed to have to keep coming by this same place. What are you going to do, Joe Jones? And so then I'm calling over there, Mr. Chairman, to the building and housing. As the distinguished lady said, okay, well, you have to call 311 now. And so I encourage anyone who's having issues, call 311.
Yeah.
Check it out. But it's a problem, Mr. Chairman, with enforcement. And, you know, I'm appreciative of the distinguished lady, and I support the lighting. I just want to make sure that
Gotcha.
it's not too much lighting.
Thanks, Councilman. Well, Building and Housing will be here soon for operational review, and so that'll be your time to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you,
interact with Building and
distinguished
Housing.
lady.
You're welcome. All right, seeing no further questions, ordinance number 639-2024 stands approved. And Councilwoman, please interact with members to address any other concerns they may have before we
Thank you.
move it on to finance. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Ordinance number 838-2024 by Councilmembers Bishop and Griffin by departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing directors of public works and capital projects to convey and grant various easements to the Ohio Department of Transportation at a city-owned property within the Garfield Park Reservation in the city of Garfield Heights for the purpose of replacing the Broadway Avenue SR 14 bridge and declaring the easement rights no longer needed for the city's public purpose, public use, rather. Director.
Good morning, Chair and Committee. We have a piece here for the city to be able to grant easements to ODOT to be able to construct a bridge. It's a very complicated piece. That's why I have a very intelligent person here to be able to explain on the nuances. For to have here Commissioner DeGeneres from MOCAP. Also, we have a guest from Metro Parks on McDermott who can also answer questions that may come up regarding this piece. So I'm going to turn it over to the Commissioner so she can entertain any questions you may have about this piece and give an introduction.
Thank you, Director. As the Director stated, this ordinance would authorize the Director of Public Works to grant easements, various easements, to ODOT for the reconstruction of the Broadway Avenue Bridge. The bridge will be replaced with a much shorter span bridge, and there will also be a 14-foot wide multi-use trail that is going to be installed on the bridge as part of this project. The project is being constructed and is 100% funded by ODOT. The project is located in Garfield Reservation, which is leased by the city to Cleveland Metro Parks. So we've determined that the best way to convey the property rights needed by ODOT is by permanent highway easement as opposed to a fee simple conveyance to ODOT because of the lease. There are several easements that are needed. There are 3 permanent highway easements that total approximately 2 acres in size, and these are needed for, to construct the bridge and also to install earthen vegetated slopes. The actual bridge is going to be, the new bridge will be much shorter and will be filled in with these earthen slopes, so it'll make it much more user-friendly. And also, those easements are needed for a bioswale for stormwater management.
Sure.
There's a utility easement that's needed for electric line replacement of approximately 0.047 acres in size. And there's also a temporary construction easement that's needed by ODOT. It's approximately 0.081 acres in size. And it's needed for construction, grading, and access to the work area. A temporary construction easement is for a duration of 18 months. And the utility easement and perpetual highway easements or permanent highway easements are perpetual. The Garfield Reservation is maintained by Cleveland Metro Parks under the lease, and Cleveland Metro Parks has approved of this project. There will be no adverse impacts to the recreational activities and the features in the park. The safe access will be maintained to the park at all times during construction. And in addition, the city has agreed to gift the proceeds from the sale of the easements to Cleveland Metro Parks to be deposited into a restricted account, which will be used for continued maintenance and improvements within the park. The sale of the easements will be at appraised value of $142,400. Thank you.
Thank you. Repeat that number?
$142,400, and that's the total appraised value of all of the easements.
Gotcha. And how did you determine, so that's the appraisal, all, okay. TIP and the highway easements, that's the 142,000.
Yep, the
Okay.
3 permanent highway easements, the utility easement, and the temporary easement, ODOT had those easement rights appraised, and the total was $142,400.
So we just accepted their appraisal.
We review their appraisal, and if it seems questionable, we question the appraiser, but their methodology seemed sound.
All right. And that's the process we normally take?
Yes.
So we will accept ODOT's or whoever's appraisal. If it seems correct, we'll accept that? Or do we
yes,
typically get our own appraisal as well?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, with review, we don't pay for an appraisal when the right is needed by someone else. We require
Them.
the purchaser of that property right to take on the cost of the appraisal, rather than us pay for it. But we certainly review the appraisal to make sure that the methodology is sound and that reasonable comparables were used.
Okay. So we don't choose the person. We let them choose, and they pay.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. ODOT uses ODOT certified appraisers, so that gives us an additional level of assurance. They're ODOT certified. It's just like when the city needs to acquire a property right, we have a list of pre-approved city appraisers that do work for us on a regular basis so that we know that we're in good hands, basically.
That's fine. I have an issue with, the who they chose. I'm just, when you look at the number, are they going to be more favorable to ODOT because they have to buy it, purchase the easement rights, or are they going to be more favorable to the city? Or, you just think about those things. Like when you have a house appraisal, your appraisal that you're going to pay for yourself may come a little different than if the bank sends somebody out to appraise. It may come in, a little bit lower. Just asking that question.
Yep.
Would it make sense for us to, not for this, but for future, whether we say, hey, this is our list of appraisals that we will use and accept from the city, and here's the cost, you all pay for that, instead of, for big projects like these, like residential or like smaller projects, I understand that.
Yeah, I understand your concern, Mr. Chairman. So the appraisers typically comply with, appraisal standards, but, it's an interesting concept that you propose. I'll have to circle back on that with you.
Just a thought, when you get to those appraisals, want to make sure that we getting all that we can, or that we should be getting for these easements, temporary and highway, as well.
Yeah,
Okay.
understood, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And how did you all arrive at giving the money to the Metro Parks? Seeing that the majority of the reservation is in Garfield, city of Garfield Heights.
So, yes, the property is located in Garfield Heights, but it is leased, it's owned by the city, leased to Metro Parks. Metro Parks does all of the maintenance, recently completed some new improvements in the park, and so this is, the money will be deposited into a restricted account so that it will be spent only on city's property. And
Cleveland?
City of Cleveland owned property within the city of Garfield Heights.
Okay.
And we have Sean McDermott here, who is the Chief Planning and Design Officer from Cleveland Metro Parks, who can, expand a bit on some of the improvements that are planned for the park.
Sure. So, Ms. McDermott, the part of the park that is owned by the city of Cleveland that these funds will be used to maintain, if I'm not mistaken, the MSP committee, that part of that land was kind of not being used. It was just, what did you say? It was like a path between the main reservation and the bridge. It was like an unused portion of the park, if I'm not mistaken.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I don't.
The part of the Garfield Reservation that Cleveland owns, which is what we're doing the easements for, is that a used portion of the reservation, or is just kind of like a piece that's just there?
Yep, I understand your question, Mr. Chairman. So there's a portion of Garfield Reservation that is within the city of Cleveland, but this project is within the city of Garfield Heights on land that's owned by the city of Cleveland. So, we own a lot of land in other cities. And so that's how this is.
Okay.
Is that making sense?
So the
to
land,
you?
we own the land, Cleveland, but it just sits within the city of Garfield Heights.
Correct.
So it's still our property.
It's ours, yes. We are the fee simple owner of the land, but it's in another city.
Okay, like up in,
Chagrin Highlands, for
there you
example.
go. There you go. I don't know. Right. I was pointing to Councilman Joe Jones. He knew what I was trying to say, but yeah, thank you, Director. So, okay. So it's the same way. All right. So my thought was that the land was actually owned by Garfield Heights as well. And so that is not the case.
No, Mr. Chairman, that's not the
It just
case.
sits within the city of Garfield Heights. All right.
That's correct.
And I know the Metro Parks maintain the property, and I didn't know whether it was the easements, 142K was going to be used for the part that I initially thought was owned by Garfield Heights, or just a piece that is connecting the bridge to the reservation that they need to make these improvements on. So we own all of it.
That's correct. Yes, we own all of the land on which this project will be constructed.
Okay.
And it's in the city of Garfield Heights.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Councilman Joe Jones.
Do you have a map to show us what we own?
Through the,
Mr. Chairman, to distinguish.
At the last meeting.
An idea of last time having a visual.
through the chair to Councilman Jones, yes, if you look at the map that is in your packet, the overview map,
It is 8:38, Councilman.
Thank you, sir.
Did you find your map?
I see the map. And where are we located on the map? Is it that roadway where it says Broadway Avenue Bridge?
through the chair to Councilman Jones, yes, that's correct. That's the location of the bridge replacement project, and that is in the city of Garfield Heights. There is a portion of the reservation that lies within, a small portion that lies within the city of Cleveland. It's along Mill Creek. Okay, yes, so to the west of this location, pretty far west of this location.
So this is actually on the other side of the road. This is not actually in the park, Mr. Chairman, for clarification to the director.
Through the chair to Councilman Jones, it is within the reservation. The bridge replacement is within, it's on property that's part of the reservation. You can see that the reservation is shaded in green on your map.
Okay. So do we own all the lighter green?
It's a good point. Through the chair to the councilman, are you looking at the overview map or the smaller detail maps?
What I got here.
So folks know we have some students here with us today. They were across the hall at in our council chambers, and they stopped over here to see the committee in action.
We own all this entire park?
Yes.
Welcome, everybody.
We own all of Garfield Park?
Which school?
So then.
Okay,
that's major.
all right. Everybody? Same school? All right. Thank you for
Yeah,
being
it's a
here.
big-
Welcome, welcome.
Big reservation.
Happy to sit down if you want. Oh, okay. We don't want to delay you all. You got it, Councilman?
Mr. Chairman, this is wonderful. I didn't know we owned the whole park.
I didn't know either.
So listen, Mr. Chairman, that changes everything.
Yes.
And so, I mean, it really changes everything. So, you know, and let me just say this, right? Mr. Chairman, can we get all of what we actually own in the city of Cleveland, like, you know, that's outside our limits? Like Garfield, I never had an idea that we owned the whole park.
So, Mr. McDermott?
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
good
Laird?
morning.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Garfield Park is currently about 224 acres in its entirety. A portion of that, small portion of it, is in Ward 2, down by Mill Creek Falls. We actually own, Cleveland Metro Parks owns some of that property. What we're talking about specifically is the portion in Garfield Heights that the city of Cleveland has the underlying land, and then Cleveland Metro Parks, we have 198 years of lease rights, which is kind of viewed as ownership, if you will. The project by ODOT to replace the bridge is a critical piece of infrastructure. We've been working with them for quite some time on it. And yes, the portion in Garfield Heights that the underlying ownership with the city of Cleveland and the lease ownership that we have, Cleveland Metro Parks, since 1986, we've made millions and millions of dollars of improvements. In the past few years, we've made $10 million of just capital investments alone. We invite you to come on out. We just opened the new Garfield Pond Program Center. We restored Wolf Creek. We've got the ability to learn how to kayak now for youth, to learn how to fish, to learn how to stand up paddleboard. All that taking place just a mere feet from where this bridge project is going to take place.
Gotcha. Just so we're clear, so the larger green area, the city of Cleveland owns the land within the city of Garfield Heights.
I don't want to split hairs, but in the first page of the map attachment, the majority of that land, so not in the upper left-hand corner, I believe.
Right, just the larger green area.
The larger green area underlying is City of Cleveland fee ownership and Cleveland Metro Parks lease ownership.
Mr. Chairman, point of information.
Yes.
Can we have Joe Titron, because see, this just, you know, I've already realized years ago when I was a council person that the city of Cleveland had an enormity of land. And, but the council members have not been made aware of what our properties are, what we do own.
We can get that.
Yeah, can we get all that
Yes.
information?
And I'll clarify with Mr. Titron what the request is to work with the department.
Okay. Now, and Mr. Chairman, I am supportive of any additional funds because we give out so much money. We've just been asked to give out $20 million yesterday. So every penny and nickel that we can keep in our purse coffers or to utilize it for our communities and our neighborhoods, which are in dire need, In some areas, some of our, like right now, I have a park that's under development. We don't have any money to develop it out. And I've been asking for, to have the same kind of amenities that, Garfield has for its citizens in our park. So in the parks in the city of Cleveland, we don't have something nice. So a lot of our citizens go to Garfield because of the simple fact that we don't have those amenities in our neighborhood. They go to Warrensville when we had our center shut down, and it wasn't working because there wasn't a pool back in 2016 and 2015. And so they started going to the Garfield Center. That's the reason why our recreational facilities are not utilized the way they should, because we don't have the amenities. So I'm open, Mr. Chairman, with whatever funds we sell off this piece, that it comes back to the city of Cleveland for its citizens to use it in their parks. And we've been blessed them to have the park over in Garfield. And right now, we can find money for everybody else, but when it comes to, and I think Stephanie House stated it just right, she says we ought to be able to take care of our own people. And if we can't take care of our own people in our own neighborhoods, then something's wrong. And we just got through talking about how bad it is with lighting. So much so that we are putting an extra piece in to make sure that we have a standard.
Gotcha. So what I'm hearing, Councilman, you would like the money, the easement sale of $142K to not go to the metro parks, but instead come back to the city of Cleveland to be used in a neighborhood park that's in Ward 1 and 2, I'm assuming, because that's
Yeah,
two.
the money can come back for public park usage in the city of Cleveland. And we're trying to develop our parks out right now. We need to have a walking path. The citizens have asked me for a walking path at Adelia Park. They've asked me for a walking path over here at Frederick Douglass Park. So the issue is, it costs too much money. Just to even put in today, that $125,000 will be spent up just putting in one path. But that's one path more than what we don't have.
Sure. Gotcha. Thanks, Councilman. Any other questions from the committee? Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, through the chair. We're selling, through the chair to the director, we're selling easement rights, not the land, or we're selling the land?
Just easements.
Through the chair to Councilman Harsh, yes, that's correct. We are selling easement rights
Okay, and through the chair, who are we selling them to?
to ODOT.
To ODOT?
Yes.
And then, through the chair, the plan is to take the money from ODOT, put it into a fund with a restricted account to be used solely for maintenance and construction of improvements at the park by Metro Parks.
Yes, through the chair, that's correct.
So essentially, getting $142,000 from the state and then just turning it over to the Metro Parks.
Yes, correct.
Just so we're clear. So, Mr. Chair, I think it's foolish not to accept money from ODOT. Of course, if ODOT wants to pay us for what everybody thinks is a good project and needs to be done, that makes sense. I guess I'll stop shy of Councilman Jones' suggestion. I don't know if $142,000 in the city coffers need to be turned back over to this project to make it successful, but it's essentially, if we're just acting as a conduit for state funds, we should just call it what it is. We're just a conduit for state funds.
What was that? I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. I'm sorry.
You want to repeat that last part?
Yes.
Essentially, we're acting as a conduit for state funds. We're accepting $142,000 from ODOT and then giving it to the Metro Park so they can use it at this location. It's not money from the city, it's money from the state. We're just the transfer agent because we've got the land, and if everybody agrees that the park is a good project and it's, that's what the land is for, otherwise we just keep the land and do nothing. But it's not money that we're taking out of our general fund, it's just money coming from the state and we're rerouting it. Just calling it what it is, that's what it is.
Yeah, that's what it is.
Sure. We do this a lot. We sell easement rights, temporary, permanent highway, whatever we call them. We do this. We do this a lot. And oftentimes, we determine where the money goes. So it can go any place. Some have come back to the city, some has been applied to different projects. And in this case, they're asking for it to be applied to the Metro Parks. However, I do understand Councilman Jones' point. Is $142,000 going to make or break, the work that is happening here in the park? But rather, it can make a park that is close to this area, that's actually in this, that's, what the residents can go to in their neighborhood. So I understand his point. Councilman?
And
I
Mr.
would also,
Chairman,
I've been to this park. It is a park that Clevelanders use.
Yes.
Let's admit that. I use the Metro Parks all the time, whether they're in Cleveland or not. Clevelanders use them.
Right.
It's
Well,
right next to us.
I don't think he's disputing whether Clevelanders use it. What he's saying is that, for people have to leave Lee Seville to come down Broadway 93rd to come here because the park that's actually at the end of the street is a mess, right? And so you get a small amount of money that could overall benefit, two small neighborhood parks that are within the area where residents actually live in his community. Councilman, am I correct?
You're correct. I mean, even though it's a small nominal amount, it could also help with lighting. We just got through talking about that. We got a walking trail that's at in Carouge Park right now. We want to expand. We've asked Metro Health to come into our neighborhood. So and we've been asking Metro Health to come in, indirectly or for quite some time, going all the way back to my predecessor, where they wanted to build up that entire area in Carouge Park that's undeveloped that we share against Warrensville. And it's like, of course, Metro Parks will select where they want to go. I know they got the upper part of the park on the west side now by the lake, and they're doing a wonderful job there. I don't see this as being anything. This would not be a drop in the bucket for Metro Health, but it would make a difference in the city of Cleveland wards that don't have this $142,000. It could be used for lighting, and it could be used for security cameras. Those are the various things that we need to have in our parks. And this is, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished administration and to Metro Parks, is no slight. This is a unintended windfall. You wasn't expecting it, I presume, when this, you started your project. And this will help a poor neighborhood. Let's face it, the city of Cleveland, Mr. Chairman, is the poorest neighborhood in the poorest one of the poorest cities in the nation. So every little bit counts. And so when I sit here at this table and I see people lined up to get money for these sports franchises and stuff like that, we shouldn't even have a major issue with this little $124,000. It should just go right on over into our coffers and come in to help us fix up our neighborhoods. We don't even have, Mr. Chairman, when you go to Metro Parks, we don't even have bathroom facilities. We have porta potties. And in some instances, I have to beg for porta potties to be installed in the neighborhood for Little League baseball and football. I shouldn't have to beg for that, Mr. Chairman. And then when it comes to mobile cameras, we could get 3 to 4, maybe 5 mobile camera systems out of this $124,000. And then we could set those mobile cameras up to help us with safety issues. There's so much we can do with this $142,000. And then I would ask, Mr. Chairman, to Metro Health, because, certainly I'm not trying to offend Metro Health or any of the powers that be.
Metro Parks.
That's right. Metro Parks. Thank you. So can you, I ain't trying to offend you. I know I see a lot of faces on the other side, and I don't know what those face expressions mean. But if you could talk to the issue, I would be appreciative. And I mean no offense. We are in a poor neighborhood. We are holding on by the skin of our teeth, and we're stressed out and maxed out as council members dealing with a number of ills in our neighborhoods. Some of our members are doing better than others, but I can tell you right now, we haven't gotten the kind of hit that we need to have. And when I say that, I really mean it. That if we don't get investment, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman sitting here at the end of this table, our neighborhood is gone. And if the Ward 1 area is gone, we're gone. Totally knocked out on the east side with the exception of a couple of pockets. And so I'm suggesting, Mr. Chairman, that this $142,000 be utilized in parks in my neighborhood, or how the chair see fits.
Ms. McDermott, I think he asked if you want to make a comment on that.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think we completely respect the needs of the larger community. In respect to this specific matter, Cleveland Metro Parks has managed this asset for 38 years, and we haven't asked for a penny, nor are we really asking for a penny from the city of Cleveland today. What we're stating is we would like what is generated from this matter to stay and be reinvested in the asset, so in Garfield Park. Our intent is to invest the $142,000 for extension of trails, extension of specific capital improvements, which will be done likely within a year. We serve everyone, so we see City of Cleveland residents, we see Garfield Heights residents, we see Maple Heights, we see everyone come to this park. And we had, in 2023, 1.8 million people come through this park. 390,000 of them have had some type of recreational experience. We're seeing visitation at Garfield be very strong. We provide law enforcement, maintenance every day. We just opened a nature-based preschool that operates on a voucher system to invite all and come have one of the most unique education that you can have for a young person, and that's open to City of Cleveland residents right here at this location next to the bridge. We're pretty staunch about wanting to see these funds that are generated from the sale of the property that we have a 200-year interest in come back into the park, and we will be good stewards of those funds.
And Mr. Chairman, we don't have any of that, not in one of my parks, not one. We don't have any of that programming. We don't have any of what this distinguished gentleman is talking about, but the citizens of Garfield got it, and they got our land. They have our land. And let me just say this, that's the generosity right there, is that Cleveland has Garfield Park and haven't sold it. And so now Metro Health has, Metro Parks have it. And so we don't have anything the distinguished gentleman is talking about, no kind of amenities like that for our 23,000 citizens. And so, he's talking about using the funds for the very thing I'm asking that I need help with in my parks.
Sure.
And so I would suggest, Mr. Chairman, I get it that you're moving the projects and stuff along. So how much money are you investing, Mr. Chairman, in Garfield right now? How much money is going into that park?
Mr. Chair, just from a capital project standpoint alone, in the past 4 years, 5 years, we've invested approximately $10 million of funds into the park. We've got our new Iron Springs Pavilion, restrooms, our new Garfield Park Program Center, our new pond, stream restoration, trails, and paving, 500 trees planted. So it's a park that we put a lot of emphasis on because when this park was received from the City of Cleveland in 1986, it had not been invested in by the City of Cleveland for decades. And I don't want to say that we're still playing catch up, but we are making major strides to bring this park to the standards of Cleveland Metro Parks that everyone enjoys, including City of Cleveland residents.
So question, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman. So you've invested $10 million over the last 4 years. And is that $10 million out of your operating fund, or how did the $10 million come about? If you could elaborate, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman.
Mr. Chair, we have put a tremendous amount of effort working with philanthropists, donors, grant providers, Ohio EPA, Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Ohio CAT. So specific partners of ours who have seen the vision of Garfield Park and shared that vision and literally put pen to paper to write a check to invest. So I would say of the $10 million, approximately $2 million has been from Cleveland Metro Parks direct funds, and the balance has been raised through grants, donations, and partnerships.
Well, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Laird, have we ever invested $10 million in any of our parks that you could recall?
Through the chair to the councilman, no.
We haven't invested $10 million in none of our parks
not in one
as
park.
a city.
Not in a single park.
Not a single park.
No. Through the chair, to the councilman.
And why has that been the case? Because he's got a lot of money over in Garfield.
Through the chair to the councilman, we have a lot of parks, so it would be difficult to put that much into one park and not be able to share it across. We have over 150 parks.
So have we put $5 million in the park?
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't know about that number.
Right.
I can tell you with a surety that we have not done 10 million, but I can't speak to 5 million. I know I can speak of probably a million or so in some of the parks, but I'd have to give you, we can go back and find out exactly which parks and the amounts of investment over 5
Yeah,
years.
we can
or
get that.
process.
We can request that information too.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman, I appreciate you guys running the park. Now it's really technically your park. When you made the deal, and that was a part of the deal. Talking to Mr. Laird is sharing with us that he can't even recall. So that's 30 years of being here with the city of Cleveland. Again, no disrespect to the project that you're doing. I believe that we need to use every penny. That's the only reason why we were able to even purchase the park in Garfield or have additional land, because we were very frugal and we ran our city at that time like a business. And so not only were we able to get Garfield, but we bought up so much territory from the Ward 1 area all the way out to where the Whole Foods store at. You know where the Whole Foods at out there? We used to own all of that completely. Just from Ward 1 straight over. We even bought territory in Warrensville and some territory in Maple Heights when the city was really operating with a business concept in mind. And they didn't have enough money, so it's my understanding they had enough money. They had so much money, Mr. Chairman, that they had to find a place to invest. And that's how we bought up and consumed a lot of territory in that period of time. So in the proposition, Mr. Chairman, of the needs and wants of our citizens, $142,000 is not a lot of money in the big scheme of things, but at least we're plowing it back to the citizens who have earned the right to get those funds and use it for their own parks, even though it's just a small mist and drop in the bucket. And we don't, unfortunately, it would be hard found if we could find a park that we've, in the last decade, have invested $5 million in, or maybe even $3 million. So the issue is, to the distinguished gentleman, I love what you're doing out at the park. I use the park in Garfield, but it's just like some of our other amenities we have. I don't feel safe to use my park with my family to go walking because I'm faint out of fear of security. And we don't have enough lighting, Mr. Chairman. So I have to skip my park to go walking over in Garfield Park. And so I would say, Mr. Chairman, we should invest in our own, and whatever pennies and nickels we get, we should start being frugal and business-oriented here. If we give people money, it should be we loaned it to them, and they pay us back.
Sure.
And that's the reason why yesterday I asked, why can't we make this deal a loan?
Yeah.
Well, we know we can get this money back. And so if we don't, here at this table, manage our funds in a way to support not just short-term but long-term, then we're going to find ourselves with no money down at the end of the road. And so my proposition, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman, looking at the budget, we're thankful right now. But there was a time not too long ago where we had to furlough our employees because we didn't know if we were going to be able to pay them. So we had to pass an initiative in order to get additional funds because we were that strapped. Yeah. Our educational systems, our recreational facilities right now, Mr. Chairman, still have not come back into full operation like they used to be. So we run our recreational facilities on half days, which is we're not giving our citizens who are seniors who paid their due an opportunity to even come to the pools in the morning time like they used to at 6 o'clock in the morning. So I'm only saying, Mr. Chairman, we haven't gotten past, we haven't gotten to the end of the tunnel to see the light. Gotcha. And we need to use every penny. And so I'm supportive of taking the $142,000 and putting it into our own coffers.
Got it. Thank you, Councilman. Let me ask you this. So your budget that you have for the park, did you anticipate this $142K was that part of your budgeting for the park? Or is it something just, because it just came along, right?
Mr. Chair, as part of the process of right-of-way negotiations, the typical right-of-way negotiations and appraisal, the thought was that yes, and this is typical to how we do most of our parks, if ODOT does need property for a taking, a condemnation, or a need such as this for the right-of-way easements, that property gets put back into the budget, into the park. Specifically, for Garfield, when we knew that funds would be generated, the intent and budgeted was to put them directly back into the park for the trails.
Right. Well, that's two different things. So one, if something comes along, then you add it back into your budget. But when you created your budget for the park, and as you've been doing this work, so you had a line item anticipated for these future easement sales.
We have a line item or need, if you will, to use these funds to complete a portion of the project that is not yet complete until these funds become available on the west side of the pond to pave and finish paving the asphalt loop that was a former Parkway Road. Yes.
So that was in your budget to use these funds to do that?
Correct.
Okay. And you already knew what the cost of the easements were when you did your budget?
General, very general.
So what if the easement rights weren't sold? How were you going to do the work?
We either wouldn't do it, we would wait, or we would look for other funding down the road.
Okay, thank you. Councilman McCormack?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Appreciate that. I appreciate the conversation today. Chair, from my perspective, number one, the metro parks are very similar to our schools, our libraries. They are funded through property taxes, and our citizens use them. Chair, to Mr. McDermott, how much cash has the city of Cleveland given the metro parks in the last 5 years to operate the parks that our citizens use?
Through the chair, Councilman McCormick, to my knowledge, $0.
$0, okay. Through the chair to Mr. McDermott, Edgewater Park, Euclid Beach, both places a lot. My dad lives over in Collinwood. I live on the west side. I would say, very diverse groups of folks go down there. I don't know, but probably many City of Cleveland residents use those parks. Would you assume, through the chair to Mr. McDermott?
Through the chair to Councilman McCormick, yes, we see an incredibly diverse guest set, if you will, at our parks, especially City of Cleveland residents, and not only City of Cleveland residents, but a lot of our parks see people come from all over the region.
Thank you. Chair to Mr. McDermott, would you think that if you asked the majority of folks that utilize the metro parks located in the City of Cleveland or near the City of Cleveland, if they understand the management structure or care about the management structure of the parks, do you think what percentage would understand the management structure? Meaning, who owns it, who pays for it? What percentage of people do you think would understand that?
Through the chair, Councilman McCormick.
And no hit on them. They shouldn't. It's not their job to.
Correct. Just to put a spitball number to it, maybe 20%, but you know what? That doesn't.
I think that's far
It doesn't
too
matter
high.
to us.
Yeah.
It does not
So,
matter to us.
Chair, to the panel, my point is that our City of Cleveland residents utilize the metro parks daily, from east to west to north to south. They utilize them in the City of Cleveland. They utilize them outside of the City of Cleveland. And I understand we're going through a whole parks plan. This is no hit at the City of Cleveland. But if you polled my residents and said, would you rather the metro parks manage a park or the City of Cleveland, 95% would say metro parks. 95% would say we'd rather the metro parks manage it than the City of Cleveland. No hit. We're getting there. We're making improvements. I really do believe that. But my point is that the City of Cleveland does not contribute to the metro parks. The City of Cleveland residents greatly benefit from the metro parks on a daily basis. You go down to Edgewater Park, it is a little bit of everybody. It is as diverse as anything. I would challenge you to find one other amenity in Northeast Ohio that draws as diverse of a crowd than Edgewater Beach. Okay, also metro parks. So my point is that the City of Cleveland does not, citizens do through their property taxes. The city government does not pay into the metro parks, even though the metro parks provides an incredible benefit to our residents on a daily basis, reflected too by the levy numbers. We overwhelmingly vote in favor of the metro parks. Our citizens love the metro parks. My concern with the conversation today, and I get the conversation, is if we took that $140,000 and put it in the City of Cleveland, it would be deployed in 20 years. We just had a committee hearing talking about how we got penalties for not deploying capital dollars. The problem in the city of Cleveland, in my opinion, is not that we don't have money. We roll over $45 million of cash every year. We've got money in bonds tied up, is we can't get a damn project out the door. So if I'm faced here with very real concerns from Councilman Jones about his parks, how to deploy resources in order to make those improvements, to me, the issue is not that we don't have the bond dollars to create the amenities that Councilman Jones and his residents want to see. It's that we can't get the money out of the door. And I will tell you one thing, the entity that can is the Metro Parks. They can get the money out the door. So even if we said on principle that we want to transfer these dollars to the city of Cleveland, and again, I'm not trying to insult anybody at this table, it just is what it is. I've been here a long time. I grew up in the damn city. I will die in the city. The point is that even if we transferred this money, it will sit in a city bank account for 20 years until it's deployed, versus getting into capable hands that can deploy it into an asset that will benefit residents of the city of Cleveland. So I'm not disputing what Councilman Jones is saying, nor his needs. I fully believe him. I trust him. My concern here is that if we're looking at how to deploy resources to improve facilities that benefit the people of the city of Cleveland, in this specific case, I think it makes most sense to go with the Metro Parks to complete this project. And all of those capital dollars that are sitting in accounts in the city of Cleveland, or let me talk about my ward in NEF dollars. Again, it's not that there's not goodwill. I have hundreds of thousands of dollars sitting in my bank account that I've been trying to get out the door for projects in Ward 3. I'm sure we all have similar stories that are not going anywhere. They're sitting in the law department, they're sitting in finance, and they're stuck. And I have emails today from my residents saying, where the hell is this project you told me was coming a year ago? And so my point is that we could transfer the money, sure, to the city of Cleveland, but that doesn't mean it's going to go out into our parks or into our community or onto our streets. We got a problem with deploying money in projects in the city of Cleveland, a huge problem. And so I am not in favor of transferring this money to the city, not because Councilman Jones's issues are not real, they're very real, but because this is an active project that the Metro Parks can deploy into a resource that will benefit residents of the city of Cleveland today or whenever the project is finished. And I think the concerns you're hearing from this side of the table, I think are largely reflected, sure, some on resources, but also on the fact that the city of Cleveland needs to overhaul the way that we deploy resources in our neighborhoods. And again, I know personally from my ward funds, Mr. Chairman, that I have projects that are 2-3 years old, and I know the finance department came through and said, look at all this money you have in the bank. I said, that money's in the bank because you can't get a damn project done. So the point is that, again, there is a project in front of us that benefits City of Cleveland residents. There's an improvement plan that can be deployed by the Metro Parks in an efficient manner to benefit City of Cleveland residents. And I think on our side of the table, the frustration is real, the concerns are real, but so much of it is associated with our inability to deploy projects in the community. That's my perspective, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman McCormack. So I'm gonna let Councilman Jones respond, and we really got to move on. So Councilman Jones.
Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dermott, because I don't want this to be like, you're doing a favor for the citizens of the city of Cleveland. So when taxpayers in Cuyahoga County and the state of Ohio, you receive your funding from whom? The taxpayers?
Through the chair. We receive funding through property owners, through the property tax.
So you get property tax from whom? From the taxpayers?
Through the chair, we receive property taxes from those who own property in Cuyahoga County and Hinckley Township.
Right. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Dermott's organization is funded by all taxpayers in Cuyahoga County. So it's not just Garfield or it's another locality, it's everybody. So even the citizens of the city of Cleveland who use the park have a right to use the park. They have a right to go to the park. It is a public park. And so because you're paid by the taxpayers, all taxpayers should have the opportunity and luxury of being able to go to the park. Would you agree, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dermott?
The way we operate is we are open to all. We're open to...
You don't exclude anybody,
We are
correct?
open to people who may live in Lorain County. I mean,
Right.
anyone.
So all taxpayers. So all taxpayers in the state of Ohio. Because you can't really control who comes in and who comes out. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dermott?
Yes.
Yeah, but the question is, the taxpayers pay your operation to run. And so, Mr. Chairman, I understand, and that's, my colleague's argument about how things are stuck and broken. But that's a part of what we're having these committee meetings for. So then if the law department is having problems, then we need to really drill down on that law department. Mr. McCormick has been here for quite some time. And I understand the frustrations he's going through because all of us to some degree go through those frustrations. But Mr. Chairman, I sit here at this table and I'm a good player at the table with other colleagues and projects in their neighborhoods. And I know I've voted on almost close to $1 billion or more on Mr. McCormick's projects in his neighborhood and haven't bitched about it. When he had the West Side Market issue, I was one of those supporters for the West Side Market and any other issues. And this is no disrespect to Mr. McCormick. I'm saying at the table that if we have funds, and it's any funds, it's not just this $142,000, Mr. Chairman, is we have to run the city as an operation. If we have a problem in those cities, then that's when we should have work committees get together. Why is it that our contracts are so stuck? Why can't we get them out? Is it because we don't have enough attorneys? Is it about competency and capacity? What is it? And that's, we created these departments, Mr. Chairman, where we fund every year that's supposed to take analysis of these departments that seem to be stuck. And then how do we unstuck them so that they are performing at a place where we can get the funds out the door? But we shouldn't use that as the argument to give the funds over to another entity that's already being paid by taxpayers for their usage. And so if we get an opportunity to get any funding, not just hear what Mr. Dermott wants, and I'm not against Mr. Dermott's project, I'm only saying that our mentality should be business-oriented about protecting our finances in the city of Cleveland on everything. And if we get one red penny back, we need to keep it. And we see that clearly yesterday when we didn't get any handouts. We got people coming to us talking about they want $20 million, and we don't have a portfolio package. We don't have no professional package put together, nothing to show us why they would need or how they would use the money. Now, you just asked Mr. Dermott, Mr. Chairman, about was this a part of it. So it's like a 50-50 here. And so when I look at this issue, I support Garfield Parks. I'm not against it. I'm making the argument that if it's our funds, we keep our funds in the city of Cleveland. We grow our pot so that we will have that $10 million to fix our parks up in our city, like Garfield is doing with the Metro Parks. And then I'll share this lastly. On the east side, how many parks does Metro Park have taken over in the city of Cleveland? I know Garfield why you took it over, but on the east side of the city of Cleveland, southeast, how many parks are Metro Park has decided to take over?
Through the chair. Councilman, it's not so much a decided to take over. It's all the parks in the city of Cleveland that we have come to manage have been through an invitation and through a partnership. I will say that the investments that are being made right now on the southeast side with the $19.5 million that Cleveland Metro Parks was able to secure for the RAISE grant to connect Garfield Park to Slavic Village up 91st, and then to also connect the Slavic Village Downtown Connector, Morgana Run.
Right.
Major investments and major partnerships. Also on the east side, Euclid Beach, Villa Angela, Wildwood, Gordon Park. So it's a robust list.
Now, so you have Gordon Park right now, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman? You run Gordon Park too?
Through the chair, as of October 3rd of last year, Cleveland Metro Parks now has added to the lakefront lease the southern portion of Gordon Park.
So you only have part of it?
We only had part of it. Now we have the entirety of Gordon Park.
I see. So Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Dermott, I would like to, then to the administration, we have Caruso Park, and we want to develop something there. We have a watershed over there, a creek that runs through the park. Would you be interested in entertaining the concept of Caruso Park and building it up?
through the chair, Councilman Jones, that's certainly a topic for another day.
Right. Because since we're sitting here at the table and, you know, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And so my thought is this, is that we have problems. And so, you know, I know that there's been entertainment in the past from Metro Parks to come over into our area to help us to put a bird park, butterfly, some other stuff out there in that place to really lift it up. And we could use the extra security, you know, that Metro Parks have. Because Metro Park is not just doing the park, you have security people who come through that park and you maintain it on a consistent basis. So, Mr. Chairman, I would be interested in working with Mr. Dermott and Metro Parks and entertaining the concept of taking over my area and helping us to build. Because I know that there's some select areas that you choose because of the geographical locations. And so, you know, I would be interested, Mr. Chairman, in doing that. But you know where I'm at on the 142,000. Now, if we give the 142,000 over the Metro Parks, you know, I would really want to have a real robust discussion about you working with us in our park to prepare our parks. You know, and it's not something that's like Edgewater, because we know everybody's going to come to Edgewater. So Edgewater was the easy one to get. And then when you go over to Gordon Park, it's still a great place to get. You know, you're selecting and choosing, you know, some really nice pieces. So maybe Carews Park and some other parks may not be the nice pieces on the board, but we need help too. And as you just heard the director, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished gentleman, he can't even remember the last time he invested $10 million. And so we need your help too on east side, southeast.
So, Councilman, hear you loud and clear. So are you going to offer an amendment, or you want to hold that amendment? You still have to go to Finance Committee as well. And then
What's your
you have your
suggestion,
conversation
Mr.
with the Metro
Do you-
Parks. I mean, you know, you do what you feel, you know, you think.
I would be open to the committee. You know, I'm just one person here, so I just wanted to express how I felt about it. I do support my colleagues' projects in all of their neighborhoods, and they've had extensive, not just Mr. McCormick, but this entire table. And so I would ask my colleagues to support helping me with my parks, helping me in my neighborhood. And if 142,000 is a hard ask, you know, in terms of helping me in my neighborhood, or the ask, Mr. Chairman, to the Metro Parks to come help me in my neighborhood, and that's too much of a hard ask, then, yeah, I think we should keep the 142,000. Because the issue is, we need progress too. We're citizens and taxpayers in our neighborhoods. We have problems, but we also have a lot of needs. And so even though $142,000 may not be a lot for some folks, it's a whole lot for people who don't have it. And so that's the reason why I'm making the argument. So I'll yield, Mr. Chairman, to what your suggestions should be moving forward.
I think, Councilman, Finance next week, that this will have to go to as well. Maybe have some conversations between now and Finance, and then, you know, you can show up to Finance and go from there.
I appreciate it, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. See no further questions. Ordinance number 838-2024 stands approved. All right?
Thank you.
Ms. McDermott, you're going to talk to Councilman Joe Jones, right?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you. All right, committee adjourned.